Welcome back, ladies and gents. Map 1 went down to the wire, and if that's any indicator of what's to come, we have a banger in store for Map 2. Doug, Lex with me. And Lex, man, we talked a bit about XSET and how flat they looked against Envy, but damn, was that a response against Immortals.
Yeah, I think they were allowed a little bit to play their game plan, kind of unfold things as they do the job that they set out to do in terms of, how they wanted to be playing their attack side. And I mean, you already said it, but it seemed as though not only did they step up to the plate, so to speak, they almost exceeded my own expectations for them, just being able to handle that first map. Immortals really spent a large portion of the first half looking like the favorites. From second half, it was not necessarily the story, as XSET was just playing so well individually and as a team.
They really were, and Lex, I think a lot of the narrative for that first map was neither team was willing to give an inch, right? Like, you see XSET come out with this haymaker at the beginning of the round, and then Immortals' response was one of their own in the next round. So just, again, so highly contested. Such a good matchup, and I think a lot of folks, at least in Twitch chat right now, are leaning towards Immortals, and, they look really good, and you expect them as the favorites, but XSET showing that they demand respect. Right, and with how well they played Ascent in the second half, you understand why.
Yeah, and I think, both on attack and defense, they had some things go right for them that, really it would have been a different story entirely had they not, where, since we have the Envy graphic up there, I really think XSET, at least on Ascent, did a lot of that time, at least at the beginning of the rounds, almost throwing out gimmicks that either worked or didn't, little set pieces, little set plays. And I felt like, even when something would go wrong for them in some of those rounds, they had success. Yep. I mean, they were converting that early round momentum and favorability in their favor. And, when we're talking about how close the skill gap between these teams can be and how intense these matches can be when it comes to just the little things that win or lose you a game, XSET was stacking the odds in their favor in a lot of those rounds, and it ended up paying off for them in the end, obviously.
It is. There we see the scoreboard again. XSET walking away with a 13-10 win over Immortals. And, one of the things we highlighted and we actually saw just a few seconds ago with the previous scoreboard was the frag wins that Envy was able to walk away with. 10-3 in favor of Envy. An entirely different story for XSET here.
Oh, yeah. And, I think that just kind of goes to speak to the individual level of play that we're seeing now, where I think all the players on XSET are finally awake. That they're playing to the level that we expect them to be playing at. They're hitting their shots, and they're making situations that, Immortals may have been coming in extremely confident into that series and showing us that they were rightfully so contenders to win that map. But, if XSET's answering in kind, kind of punching Immortals back in the face with their own aggression, I got to imagine that map 2 is going to be a heater here, Doug.
It will be. I believe it was Mike Tyson, and Sean was the one who quoted him, so I've got to give credit to Sean here. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. Yep. For XSET, they did the punching that time around. Now, let's turn our attention to the next map, right? In this series, we are going to be going to Bind. Lex, we haven't called Bind in any of the matches that we've called during this tournament. When you keep that in mind, you think about the play style that we just saw from both XSET and Immortal. Is there anything about this map that leans a certain way? Also worth noting, this was XSET's map choice.
Yeah, I got to imagine, part of the reason why this might be an appealing pick for them is, for the side of Immortals at least, they've changed their composition of this map very recently, working in Astra. You've got a little bit of a VOD review you can do there, do your homework on how Immortals was playing that map. And so for XSET, it's already a map that you're comfortable on, and it's probably easy enough to just kind of flip through a VOD, see how the other team likes to play, and judge whether or not your game plan is going to work. So, for the coaching staff over on XSET, I got to imagine this is the map where they plan to play it against Immortals because they knew it wouldn't be banned. You got to think they're going to be coming in here with a, maybe not a foolproof game plan, but certainly one that's going to stretch the limits of Immortals.
Right, and again, like, Bind has been a comfortable place for XSET for a long time, even without all the changes. And once again, we're seeing some of the flexibility with how these teams are able to play, particularly on the side of XSET. You've got Weeded on the Sky. Aaron's going to be back on the Astra. You've got a couple of fun things cooking up here. No Jet. really for either side.
Yeah, and so, I don't want to necessarily say it's a diminished factor entirely, but as far as bind goes, if you do have a Jet on the board, there's always that threat, constant pressure that an operator can bring to the table. But, at least in this sense, it's not nearly as devastating when you necessarily can't refrag a Jet or whatever. You've got Cure over there on the Raze, and for the side of Immortals, right, like Chemicals playing the Cypher. So depending on who's rocking the operator and when, it may not be something that we talk about a whole lot. I think the Sky pick for Weeded is something that isn't necessarily new, but it's something that I think will pay, either dividends for XSET or hurt them in the long run. We'll see.
Well, if nothing else, it's a fun pick. I think, Lex, I'd love to get your thoughts on this too for Immortals. You've got the Leer out of Reyna, but no flashes, right? Definitely not what they had on the side for Weeded. I am being told very quickly, folks, there was a mispick on Agent, so we're going to redo Agent Select very quickly. So basically, any of the conversation that we just had on which agents are going to be joining the fold, just throw it all away. Forget it.
Yeah.
Just absolutely forget it.
Yeah. I think he's played probably maybe once or twice on Bind as Sky before. I don't know if he was even the one who was mispicked. But, we're looking at that agent list as it was. It definitely seemed as though, knowing now that it was a mispick, anxious to see who they're going to swap out for what.
Mm-hmm. We'll see how things pan out. Again, folks, if you are just joining us, map 1, it was close. It was spicy. It was good, but it went in favor of XSET. Immortals put up one heck of a fight, but fell just a bit short, 13-11 on Ascend, and that's going to bring us to Bind. A friendly reminder, both of these teams are fighting for tournament life.
True.
Right? Like, loser goes home here, or the loser, in this match goes home. Nothing left for the rest of this week of Stage 2 VCT. And they're going to have to go through really the gamut again, and that's certainly not what you want to do.
No, this is a big moment for both these rosters, obviously. And, I think I touched on it at the beginning of the series, but where Immortals definitely has already kind of solidified themselves as being a top tier team, or at least near there. I think XSET has done that as well, in recent weeks.
Yes.
But I think for both of these rosters, like, they want a top finish in this tournament, right? Like they want to advance. They want to continue to kind of prove that each and every time that they set foot in a server.
Mm-hmm.
So, if we're measuring who's got more to prove, I think still you'd probably classify XSET as being that. But, let's take that aside and just say, in terms of XSET versus Immortals, like, both of these teams are young guns that are talent in the scene and absolutely are going to be mainstays, I think, in the North American Valorant scene for a while. So it's tough to necessarily assert dominance over your peers like that. But if you were able to 2-0 Immortals here today, I think that'd be a huge confidence boost for XSET.
Oh, yeah. That's a big win for sure. And again, even just to stay alive in the tournament. Now, I want to talk a bit more about Bind, right? Specifically that map, because I mentioned earlier on, we haven't gotten Bind in any of the matches that we've called. And there are so many nuances to that map, which was, I think, ultimately is highlighted by the agent selection, which, as we mentioned, we are going through a reselect. So we'll get back into that as soon as we can. But when you think about Bind in particular, Lex, the teleports obviously provide a spice, right? A variety that you can't find on other maps. But with that also comes a lot of really fun ways to play around the map. You often see teams fight for shower control very heavily because of the ult orb there and because of how easily you can expose A if you're able to take A short as well. Do you see some of showers really being the pivotal point on this map between these two squads, or are you getting a read either which way?
You know what? I didn't do my homework when it comes to, like, counter-stratting these teams. Leave that to the coaching staff. But I do think to some degree you can almost expect, that no matter what team we're talking about here, right, there's a few points on the map where if you're going to have a game plan, like, we're like, okay, the majority of these rounds we're going to finish B. Obviously, like, getting hookah and octagon control is going to be the focal point for you getting to that point. But when it comes to showers specifically, I think the big question mark for me, just like, I'm going to even stop being an analyst here for a second and just be a fan, is I haven't seen enough of Astra versus Astra on this map. Okay, and so why is that important? Well, specifically when it comes to shower control, right? Like, a lot of teams will invest Omen, dark cover, sky smokes if they're running a Brim. Even a Viper Wall to some degree can help you kind of maintain those sections of the map, or at least delay their taking or whatever. And so ultimately, I'm curious to see. Okay, we do have a Sage, a Raze on shot up. So for Immortals, at least this is. I was gonna say at least to some degree you can see the sky. You'd be able to take showers control a little bit easier. I don't know, man. Excited to find out though.
Yeah, I think actually as we go through Agent Select one more time, you see some of the nuances of how this is going to play out. Obviously, Immortals choosing to prioritize the Sage and the cover, the flexibility that she offers, and on both sides, right? Like, you think about how devastating Sage. Like, let's take a trip down memory lane, Lex.
Yeah.
Let's go all the way back to the beta, the beginning of the map. When you thought about Sage. Now, I'm putting you on the spot here, and if you don't say what I'm thinking, I'm going to feel real dumb. When you think about Sage on Bind, specifically at the beginning of the map, what do you think of?
Wall plants on air are what really comes to mind for me. But this is kind of the question about showers. Kind of threw me off because I'm like, it depends on how they use the Sage. You know, we'll find her on defense over here at B now, but be interesting as we pay attention throughout this map, that same narrative of map control and how they use the Sage to kind of deny or take it. XSET sprinting up along B towards Octagon now. Grabbing the orb and pushing it to site. Here they go.
Oh my gosh, they're full sending. Rossi's on the site. He's going to get mowed down. Yeah, Chemical's got one, but they should have entry onto the site. They have free access. You see the members of Immortals are starting to rotate over as Weeded gets the spike down. They just don't have a ton, and you see this fight for elbow control so pivotal in trying to take the site back. An excellent response from Dwifo. Weeded gets in on the action as well. Gangsta, the 1v2. Gangsta has a T-Net. Yeah, one of the players is no. Oh my gosh! Gangsta, are you kidding me? What a snap!
Oh my god. Just deleting them both. He knows how sexy that looked on stream.
Good thing I was with you.
Amka,
Nah,
my word.
bro.
Just destroying
that was gross.
That was beautiful. What are you talking about? Oh, just a burst to the face and a one-tap finisher. You love to see it.
Oh, and freaking A, let's look at it one more time. And, you know, I mentioned the fight for elbow control.
Yeah.
And how important that is. Things look so good. And then 1, 2, left, right, good night. Gangsta sending them packing. That was pretty.
I wonder if there was a miscom there at elbow because Aaron backed up, dropped the turret to play off of it after following that boom bot all the way up to the corner. Okay. And at some point, you got to think he's probably on comms screaming, play off my turret, play off my turret. Sees both teammates zoom past him for the fight. And they both die. He is able to trade them both out. But that really should have been a more comfortable post plant for XSET. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that, you know, there was a 4-on-4 at that point. But, you know, throwing those first 2 kills away, it really, really, really is going to be, you know, when you're watching the VOD review tomorrow and you're like, wow, that came down to a 1-on-2 and Gangsta hit those nutty shots. But, like, did it need to be that way? Doesn't matter.
Did we have to get there to begin with?
Yeah. I mean, the fact
very
is,
fair.
Gangsta just hitting some shots. That can't be helped. Well played to him.
Very well played indeed. You see, we're in a bit of a pause here. Potentially a technical pause. We'll get you any info that we can as soon as we possibly get it. And get back into the action. Meanwhile, Lux, I'd love your thoughts on this. So, seldom do you see an aggressive pistol push like that, right? Like, maybe you'll see it exposed to base short. Maybe you'll see it through hookah, which ultimately wasn't an option because Sage's wall was up, and from Rossi really being able to lock that area of the map down. But they didn't know that. They just full sent B long.
Yeah, I think that their goal, and I don't know if they had a specific read or an agent that they were trying to avoid altogether, but, you know, once you draw that first bit of utility out over towards A, you, in my mind at least, okay, if the Sage is here, she probably just dropped the barrier orb, wall goes up, head to the other site. They ran into Cypher and Sage. Okay, it didn't actually work out that way, but they sprinted into sight with such confidence that it almost seemed as though they didn't even expect heavy resistance, especially not from 2 Sentinels that had all their kit there. Interesting stuff.
Folks, again, we're in a bit of a pause. I believe Lex kicked one of the cables. It's always Lex.
My bad, man. My bad.
Who messes things up, but we'll get you guys into the action as soon as we can. It was a spicy pistol round. Things look so good for XSET until until Gangsta happened. Really is the best way to break that down. The Classic just proved to be too much. Now, Lex, with this in mind, I mentioned just a few moments ago how XSET really played with aggression in an area of the map on a pistol that you don't see super often. Do you expect that same level of aggression? Do you expect that fast pace that we haven't fully seen out of XSET a lot?
I don't know, man. And this is the first time this weekend that you and I are casting bind. We've stated that a few times. So for me personally, having not seen XSET or Immortals, at least in the past few days playing the map, I wonder whether or not, I did touch on this on pregame actually, was whether or not their game plan is going to call for stuff like that. Like, okay, we've got the read. This is how they're set up. We know how they're playing the situation. Let's go the other direction. And if the timing window is such that you think you've got 10 to 15 seconds before they are going to have their pieces back in the right places, then yeah,
Right.
absolutely. You have to collapse. You have to play the teleporters if need be and make those kind of action moves happen and do it decisively before you lose guys. But that seemed very much so like either a set piece plan or just an all out, like, you know what, we'll go up against the Cypher and the Sage, whatever. Like, we're just going to send it. So
now, well, we've talked about XSET and the aggression that they showed in the pistol, but one of the things we just very lightly touched on that I want to spend a bit more time talking about was the Rossi, right? On the Sage, walling off Hookah right at the very beginning. And we've seen times where Sages will wall off an area of the map, much like we saw yesterday on Split, right? You wall off a main, don't let any entrance into sight, and then you can rotate away. You can go elsewhere, and that can be punished. But when you think about an IGL on the defensive side, right? Like, again, you've been there, Lex. You've called situations like this. How much comfort do you place in a wall going up in a situation like that in Hookah to where you can kind of pull off? Do you full send everything away, or how do you go about that?
it all has to do with how much information you're able to inference around the map. So you can gauge numbers and kind of make those almost gamble assumptions, right? Okay, barrier orb goes up. You're not going to have somebody on the other side of that wall just staring, waiting for something to happen unless they expect you to be there, right? So it really depends on what information you're getting elsewhere on the map. And for sure, to some degree, we're talking about, gut check calls, right? Where, there might only be a 15% chance that they're going to exploit my greediness here. How much do I want to lead into the other side of the map? How much do I want to actually, kind of push my luck? And, good teams against good IGLs and smart players, it may not happen all the time, but you're eventually going to get burned. And it's oftentimes, I think, a measure of how much you can get away with. And if you are exploited and you are, you are playing up against a team who has a propensity or a capacity to kind of outsmart you or take those risks against you, it's all a matter of layers when it comes to the decision making of the players, right? Where, okay, well, I'm going to give them this and I'm going to take this away. So barrier orb goes up, but I've got a trap wire underneath Hookah window or something, expecting that this is a possibility. Little things, the meta that constantly is shifting between players and teams, it really can kind of change with the wind in a match.
It can indeed. Good news, folks. Good guy Lex has plugged the cable back in. We are just a couple of moments from getting back into the action. Again, Immortals win the pistol off the heroics of Gangsta. He's going to bring a little more punch to this fight this round. Meanwhile, we see Rossi already set up in Hookah. Got the wall teed up. I like this from Weedy with great caution, patiently waiting, and they're going to blast their way right through. The flash was there. They're trying to hunt Rossi down as he hightails it to safety, manages to find his way into one of the smokes from Astra. He stays alive, and it's actually Weeded that drops.
Absolute madness. Start shot up, collecting 2 with paint shells. JC standing with 2 of his own. Only 2 players fall. Gangston shot up due for the side of Immortals, and that's a decisive round win. But darn, that from the barrier orb getting placed, Doug, that was a, I mean, even with the slow orb down, that was a high action scene chase.
Yeah, man, and we talked about, it was, during the tech pause, we talked about, man, will we see that same level of aggression from XSET?
There it is.
Yep. Yeah, we saw it. We got it.
And it's funny,
Immortals,
though, that you're just talking about the barrier orb and the meta behind it. It's like, okay, he's going to put the wall down. Everybody get ready to shoot it. And there it is. It's instantly deleted. That's the little bit of a meta that I'm talking about right there.
XSET once again showing heavy presence down B long. A couple of flashes to clear things out. You can tell they're a bit timid in how they play this out. I don't know that they're fully committed to this, Lex. Nobody's toting the spike.
No.
You see Thwifo's still playing over by a short, ensuring nobody's playing aggressively there.
Yeah, this is, when you asked me about the showers control, this is what I meant, where you're going to take B long control or showers control early. Then you rely on the other team to get information back on whether or not you're still there. Gangsta throws that owl drone through octagon area. XSET sends theirs into hookah, and the duel ensues with Rossi unaware that Pure is in his face.
And again, they still don't seem fully committed, right? Like, look at Aaron. He's still holding the spike. They're still trying to figure out where they want to go, but you can tell as the moments tick away, Thwifo's starting to rotate back towards B. They do want to try to hit the site. The trap wire was there. You see some of the smokes entering out as the fight for elbow could be pivotal. Shot up with the Bucky, making a ton of noise as XSET have gotten their way onto the site. Aaron should be able to get the spike down. So Thwifo drops. All right, here we go. Showstopper enhance the shot. If he blasts his way onto the site, good for one, but it got traded out as Pure gets 3 on the round. Immortals, JC Stanley, and Chemicals pick the rest of XSET apart to get the round win. And Lex, you start talking about finances, that hurts.
That's a tragic bonus round loss. Yeah. Not only are you going to hand away 2 Phantoms, either the team, you know, at silver lining, say Pure and We Did both just got their ultimates. Got Aaron 1 off. Like, there's little things that maybe you did right in that round that you could be glad for, okay? You scouted out that Gangsta sent his owl drone through long B, essentially. Didn't get any information off of it, so you're like, okay, let's collapse. I'll pinch hookah. They make a really good judgment call. They find the entry onto Rossi at hookah. They even get the spike planted, but shot up with 3. I think it was a Bucky frag, 2 Bucky frags maybe, and a showstopper. So Immortals with a really big retake on a bonus round where XSET now financially in shambles, as you said.
XSET once again leaning towards B around Fountain. I know you mentioned it. I thought it would be showers control, but again, it's actually B long that XSET is just not willing to give up. And with that, Rossi's just going to continue to wall off hookah, right, and kind of force them into a spot where they're going to draw out some of that utility. You see the slow orbs coming out, a couple of Astra Stars being used, but they're just going to pull off.
I mean, you think about it, Doug. They've got a composition that can't really contest long B. You have no flashers in your composition. XSET knows this, so at the beginning of every round, I expect them to go long B. But here it's short. JC Stanley facing the brunt of a push. Thwifo and BCJ fall, finding a third on a Pure. And he might be hunting the ace here as both players are just in front of him behind that smoke. And he knows at least one more frag is just meters away now.
Yeah, JC Stanley using that gravity well, and they were just sitting ducks, man. They couldn't move anywhere at all. A couple of big kills going his way, and you know, it is worth noting that XSET, I mean, they're going into rifles, and they certainly don't have rifles of their own. Aaron able to take care of JC Stanley, but again, you expect this to go in favor of Immortals, and I think at this point the conversation we need to be having is how much damage can be mitigated here, because again, you start to feel the financial impact of how the opening is gone in favor of Immortals. If you're XSET, you almost just take what you can get.
Yeah, any kills here will be great. It's already got his cabbages in order, so not really a huge matter of building the ultimate. See what you can get, though, like I said, and doesn't find anything for his troubles. 4-0 now, Immortals in firm control. But I don't think you're sweating yet if you're XSET, right? Like, you found pretty much have a read on what Immortals is doing, which is, you know, maybe showing some aggression at hookah, short A, but ultimately they've given long B just about every single time. Despite having the Sage slowers over there, it's not even bothering to contest it. So they are swapping things up now, and here's that showers control that you're looking for.
We did playing right around the gate early on. The flash is going to be there, tagged up 2. Potentially just 1. Either way, you see some of the flash come out. Not enough presence to get the ult orb, but again, enough to draw out some of that early utility.
Yeah, and I think that is a little bit of one of those underspoken of narratives. A lot of times when we're casting, we don't get to talk about it as much, but just that utility efficiency, what you can bait out from the other team and what you can maybe you know, save and preserve on your own side to get it.
Huh.
Sometimes can spell a bigger story for the matchup now, as XSET have reset across the map, kind of rebounded back towards Hookah and Long B, but maintaining their showers control means, well, I'm not quite sure what they're doing yet, Doug.
Well, I will say this, and it just went down, but you see some of the adaptation from Immortals, even with how well things have gone on the B side of the map for them. You saw Rossi had that wall up on B long, right? Like, again, it just went down, but you see some of that adaptation, and for XSET, it may be a bit delayed, but it is a bit of rinse and repeat where they do want to go back that way. They are using BCJ's drone to maybe cause some noise, keep some attention over at B. You see the Sova starting to get a pullover as well, but the hit is on B. Cosmic Divide goes up. Pure. Oh my gosh, Pure, no, not able to land. Rossi was in his face as he wasn't able to do it, but We Did was. Pure looking to get the spike down, 10 seconds left. They're gonna have to move. We Did in a great spot. He gets punished after getting one, and the spike hasn't been planted yet. Oh my gosh, shot up. Shot up with 3, delays it long enough to win the round for Immortals. What a play.
What? And he gets a 4th. Nice little consolation frag there. Again, if Shut Up comes on the interview and talks about how bad he's been playing, I'm gonna freak out. But, man, I will admit something to you here, Doug. The crisscrossing cosmic divides there at B, I had no idea where anyone was hugging the walls of those cosmic divides, but then we saw Shot Up just with nothing but daylight, 2 free frags in front of him. That was incredible to watch.
It was, and I mean, again, Weeded was in a great spot to really blow things up, but it falls apart. Rossi, again, we mentioned that adaptation. Yeah, give up Hookah, which is exactly where XSET's headed now. Yeah, and it's hot, it's heavy, it's fast, and, well, that's really all it was. It didn't hit much harder than that. Rossi, good for 3. XSET's down to 2 members left. The spike is on the site. Yeah, but they're just nowhere near the spike.
I'm just saying, Shut Up. Oh, okay, he's going to hop out. Never mind. Never mind. I thought maybe BCJ would get a free one, and this would suddenly be a 2v2, but not quite yet.
Oh, that might still be the case. Oh, that gives a bit away. Again, that wall is up. BCJ just kind of blasting through. It's actually Aaron. Nice, fancy footwork in and out of his smoke to get onto Shot Up, and all of a sudden this seems far more reasonable, but again, they still don't have the spike. You've got to be able to create some space for you to be able to get in there. The Hunter's Fury, as you mentioned, out of BCJ, not really doing enough to impede that aggression and that space that Immortals has taken. JC Staney, good for 1. Aaron alone in a 1v2, and he's not around for long. Chemicals wins the gunfight. Immortals get to 6, and Lex, they're slapping XSET around here.
Yeah, that sucks. Watching that sucks, because you know XSET really was in a position to win that round. You know where Chemicals is. He's stuck behind the double stack, and we didn't see it from his teammates' POV, but I don't know how he's able to cross back into the tube without his teammates seeing him while that Hunter's Fury is going off. That should be the opening there for, you know, whoever was over there at Long B. I think it might have been Fwifo, but to push in and earn that last frag, unfortunately, didn't happen. So you lose the Hunter's Fury, you lose the round, you lose the weapons, and they are able to buy back into this one. But you know, despite the fact that that was a low bot round for them, one round that maybe they shouldn't have won in the first place, Doug, it was close enough to where you really wish you had converted there, considering it's 6-0 now. Immortals in a dominant lead on Bind. And this attacker killjoy out of Hookah is the first thing to start this round.
Yeah, but Lex, look at the gap, right? They can still play in pipes. They can still play safely from there and not really have to forego a ton of space. Right, and the other problem is, as soon as they shoot the wall out, you saw them rotate over to B because they know that's where the hit's gonna go. The spike is just now making it onto the site. Aaron should be able to get it down, but Rossi has already come up with a couple of really big kills. Fight for pipes control continuing. Weeded playing just around elbow. The res is gonna come up. But again, you see Weeded and Thwifo both playing entries out of that area into B, where there's really no easy way in. Shot Up with the showstopper, good for 1. Gangsta as well. Thwifo looking to play some heroics, good for 1, but again, he's got to check everything so quickly, and Shot Up's just toying with him. It's actually Chemicals who deals the last blow, and they're going to get the defuse, and that was a rifle round for XSET. Lex, you start to wonder at this point, at what point are you scared? if you're XSET?
As an individual player, I don't think you're necessarily scared, but if you're an IGL or you're the coach and you're thinking, okay, maybe we had a game plan coming into this map. This was our map pick. We've been blanked 8 rounds into this match and I don't have an answer. Like that is, you start to wonder, okay, we've even got a pretty good read on what Immortals is doing against us, right? You got the Sova Sage at B. The Cypher sometimes is flexing towards the other side of the map, but generally speaking, right, like you're getting the map control you want. You've taken showers, you've taken long B, you've taken hookah, but not being able to close out these rounds, not being able to survive the post plant and dominate any of your gunfights, it just seems as though you're constantly on the back foot when you should be succeeding. I don't even know that this is a strategic blunder out of XSET. They're just not winning the rounds. A lot of that has to do with how well guys like Shot Up are playing for Immortals.
Yeah, he's having himself a map. You feel the pressure towards A, and Shot Up again, just, I mean, running at them, right? And he still manages to get one. Onto Weeded with the paint shells. You hear the Seekers come out. Chemicals holding fast. Able to get a couple of kills already. But somehow through that chaos, it's Aaron and BCJ who remain alive. The Cosmic Divide is still in tow. As well, they both drop as soon as I say that. Immortals get to 8. It was a weird mixed buy. You heard a Guardian fire off a couple of times. But the truth is, Lex, nothing is working for XSET right now.
No, and the difference between this map and Ascent in the map prior is they were also down throughout a good portion of the first half against Immortals. They squeaked out a couple rounds, right? It was like 6-2 at one point. They definitely were not as down and out as it feels right now, being 0-8 against Immortals, who, you know, there are no weaknesses that you could just turn around and say are, you know, XSET's missing out on. They've exploited all of them. They've even found the space. They found the daylight. They've gotten the plants out. And yet, I mean, this is it right here, right? Like, just call it hard luck, call it unfortunate, whatever. Even though you're on pistols, this is very much so around where you want to be competitive in it, and Immortals is just shutting the door. Okay, here we go.
Well, spoke a bit too soon. We did Sheriff taking care of Shot Up. But again, the numbers advantage still in favor of Immortals, and it seems to be going from bad to worse. They have the gun advantage as well. JC Standy looking for Weeded. He's going to take care of him. BCJ, the last remaining member of the side of XSET. And again, you know, with Sheriffs in mind, you don't really expect that to go their way. But the problem is, Lex, if you're XSET, you're running out of windows here, right? Like, you're running out of time.
Yeah, and even if, like, 1 or 2 of these rounds that had come down to, like, 2v2s, I think maybe 1-1v1 in this game, or even the pistol, Doug. You go back to pistol when Gangsta really stole that round away from XSET with some sick shots. Well, you know, this being a 6-3 half rather than a 9-0 half is going to make all the difference in the world as this goes down further to the wire, where, you know, a 10-2 half may be the best that they can hope for. Well, only got a few rounds left to make that happen. So, as you mentioned, really dire straits here for XSET. Here with the showstopper. BCJ with an opening frag. He wants that one. Take a slow start in this map so far. 5v4. This is the best start I think XSET has had all game.
They have a different wall placement out of Rossi, not letting anyone push their way in from wall. You hear the Cosmic Divide is going to come out in conjunction with BCJ's Hunter's Fury. Good for 2! Wow. As BCJ already gets onto 3, and they use that Q to flip the map.
He's standing, getting burned out of that corner, but...
Oh, wow.
There's been so many frags through smokes in this game. The Sova diff, man. One round to the next. Somebody's getting scanned somewhere.
Yep.
BCJ with 3 frags in this round. Gangsta with 3 in the prior round. It just seems as though these rounds that have been so close, we finally have one where XSET not only is going to win it, but do so decisively.
And, you know, really, Lex, with how this half is gone, that feels, it's just one round, but that's an important one, right? Like, get the monkey off your back. And it wasn't just a round win that was a super close 1v1 that easily could have gone either way. You mentioned it, it was a decisive win. What does that do for morale?
I think it's huge, especially when you see guys like BCJ, who in the very last map had a very similar scoreline, was like 1-9 at one point in both these games. You know, picking up a 3-piece, entries, all of them, right? Like, that kind of stuff, not only are you going to net a round win from it, but suddenly you're more talkative. Suddenly you've got high spirits and you know, your VOIP. You're having fun maybe a little bit for the very first time in 10 rounds.
Yep.
Awesome start for XSET to maybe be able to bring some of the life back into this half.
Mhm.
Actually, as I say that, Immortals is playing 3 over here now.
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, they've had 3 at A most of the time, but it's gone so well. And the question whether or not they needed to. But now, as you mentioned, they do have more reinforcements this side of things. And much like we've seen in previous rounds for XSET, it's looking to exploit B long. And exploit can look like a couple of different things, right? It can be they get entry into B and they get to spike down. It can also just be pulling out some of the utility that we've mentioned out of Immortals and then reassessing how they choose to play this without investing a ton of their own.
Recalling my bot.
This may be... All right, for a moment, I thought they would cut noise and then stay. But it looks like they are going to rotate off, but they're doing so very quietly. The thing is, that should tell them a good bit, right? The Cosmic Divide's going to come out. So is the Showstopper from Pure as he works his way onto the site. U-Haul not checked. All right. Well, so they get info to understand where he is, and I love that wraparound, right? Going around the APC to take back U-Haul control and get the kill that they need. The spike goes down. Playing around the lockdown. Here we go, shot up. Good on the flight, but he's gonna blast across. He's gonna take care of Aaron as well. Cabbage is in his face, but it doesn't matter as he lands the kill. BCJ looking to get some action as well, and he's gonna drop. Gangsta's gonna get the defuse. It looked good for XSET for a moment, but Immortals get another round.
Yeah, I mean, Thwifo comes in with 2 big entries. You pop the Showstopper. It really seems like XSET's about to get their second round of the half, and instead, Fuse comes through. Immortals, the lockdown when it came to retaking that U-Haul lamps area. Got up. Feet had barely hit the floor, and he's finding that second frag onto Aaron. That is tough for XSET, who, you know, when it comes to hunting the good stuff and keeping a positive attitude, have definitely shown us that, you know, they're not out of this yet, especially claiming that round prior. But despite something finally going right for them, in a very fruitful beginning of that last round, there is nothing but darkness before them as Immortals was able to retake that cleanly.
See some of the flashes coming out as I believe for the first time they're really aggressively looking to exploit A short this time around. But again, an excellent response from Gangsta. He's going to use the Hunter's Fury. Shotup's going to use his Showstopper as well to stuff any push coming that way. Right, and to get the res onto JC Staney, BCJ, wow, dead man walking at that point. They threw something different at him, Lex, right? Like they spiced it up, and Immortals handled it the same way.
Yeah, they've done it a couple times where they just kind of walk up short and they hold, which is what I was really expecting them to just kind of chill for a second there before they made contact. And then before I know it, you know, we're all just sitting here talking about the round prior. You see Gangsta kind of cheating over through defender spawn, and then all of the sudden, all hell breaks loose. Hunter's Fury disrupts the entire push. Chemicals chiming in with a few frags. Just beautiful play, beautiful defense from Immortals. An 11-1 dominant half against XSET, who really seemed like they were confident coming into this match, too.
Yeah, I mean, for reasonably so, right? Like, given what we saw at the end of Ascent, you understand them looking to ride that high, but Immortals has just put on a clinic. I'm trying to think. I don't think I've ever casted this dominant of a half. Almost a perfect half, Lex.
Right. And it's not just almost a perfect half. It's a perfect half nearly on your opponent's map pick.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the only thing where either something has gone very, very wrong in the game plan, or, you know, maybe Immortals has changed things up a little bit. Maybe they're handling the situation a little bit better than you thought. You know, a lot of that long B control that they were getting almost for free throughout the game, the hookah control that they were getting with a little bit of resistance at times, but ultimately they were forcing the rotations of Immortals to be where they wanted and yet couldn't produce, unfortunately.
Well, Yeah, I think a lot of it seemed to me like have Belong control, right? Like, we'll give it to you. That's fine. We're not really worried about it. They had such a good plan, assuming they get onto the site through Belong. They had such a good plan at mitigating pressure from Hookah, and they had such a good plan of controlling pipes and elbow that you keep control of that area, and it's so much easier to retake the site. I think for Immortals, it wasn't just that, right? Because I just mentioned how well they were really able to control B, but we saw a bit of a different look from XSET towards the end of the half, and it was responded the same way. They were just ahead of XSET, Immortals was, ahead of XSET every step of the way.
Yeah. And I think, touching on that pipes control, having that level of awareness to be like, okay, we have a Cypher and a Sova over here. We're not going to hard hold this site. A lot of teams sometimes will still try and contest heavily one way or another, especially when the Sage is over there. Wall off Hookah, focus your attention at long as a choke point. There's a lot of those opportunities that do come up in a game, but I think when they were maybe getting outmaneuvered a little bit, kind of what I was speaking about, when XSET was doing the right things, taking the map control against them, kind of like you're saying, Doug, it's almost as though they expected that, right? Not just like, okay, we're going to give that to you, but we have a game plan for how to deal with it. There were so many times where Shot Up would come in through defender spawn alone or with a teammate and get 2 or 3 kills on a retake. And it's just like, how do you defend against that? How do you stop that if, you've got a 2 players coming in from elbow as well? You don't have a whole lot of control to work with. And I think Immortals was great at putting the squeeze on those retakes.
Well, I think putting the squeeze on as we are going to hop back into the game, it wasn't just putting the squeeze on, but it really felt like a lot of it was Immortals understanding how much they could give, right? Like without losing full control. Again, they're willing to toe the line of what's safe. Look at this aggression out of XSET down Belong, though. Again, much like we saw in the first half, they want to play around this area of the map. They full send 3. The flash comes out, and Immortals wisely understanding, fine, if you're going to push that up, we're just going to go straight into A short. There are a couple of players here. There's a good bit of utility here. The wall's going to go up, and this is trademark Sage on buy.
Yeah, Waipo really needs to somehow find life. Finds one. Unfortunately, actually, Pure does find another one, so 2 on 3, the retake will be tough here for Immortals. Or sorry, for XSET.
It will, and at that point, given where the wall is, you're comfortable giving up Shower's control. You have to hang on to U-Haul, and that's exactly where XSET are headed.
The shorty.
Yep. The shorty, the classic out of Rossi. The deficit was so great in the first half, you lose the pistol, and, I mean, you almost lose the map, right? Like, Immortals already at 12.
I'm not doing that,
It's just not good.
I'm not doing that. Oh, well, maybe they can come back. Never lose faith. This is 12-1. Okay. Start thinking about your game plan for the next map. XSET. Okay. Gonna burn out trying to come back in this half. But I think there is something to be said for, like, sure, if you win 7 straight, we can start talking about it coming back. But just having your mental right for the next map. Like, okay, you're bummed. Something didn't work. You're almost getting embarrassed at this point at 12-1. But, like, hey, reality check. Series ain't over. About to be equalized at 1. Like, reset the mental.
Right.
And like I said, just start thinking about, okay, I'm going to do my job here on whatever's left of mine. But, I'm not going to pin my hopes and dreams and my heart on whether or not we can make this a respectable scoreline.
Even respectable seems very much out of reach. As Immortals on the attack, playing this one nice and slow. Lipo's gonna get one, but then kind of has to back up. Shock darts, bullets, everything flying his way. They've thrown that and the kitchen sink at him as Thwifo drops. Looks like they're gonna get onto A. And Pure was in a good spot, at least good enough of a spot to get one and delay things a bit, but it's not enough to stop things entirely. The wall's going to go up out of Rossi. The spike is going to go down. XSET looking to retake from pipes. Again, understanding that U-Haul is a place where things have to go down. And they do go down. In favor of Immortals, Aaron, the last man standing. You mentioned at this point, if you just kind of... Yikes.
Okay.
You mentioned at that point, if you just kind of punt, really, right? Like, get rid of it, understand that as awesome of a story as it would be, it's insanely unlikely that you come back from a situation like that.
Sure.
Aaron tried, had some magic happen, but again, the shorty twice, right? 2 rounds in a row proved to be a bit too much as Immortals. They whoop XSET, and they whooped him bad.
That was a blowout. I mean, there's no other way to put it, as that was an absolute trouncing. And the weird thing is if you just like take those first 6 rounds of attack and you look at each and every one and their outcomes, it's like XSET probably should have had 3 or 4 rounds to start that game. You know, like had it been really close, especially when that pistol round, which I'm sure at some point today we'll see a replay of Gangsta just deleting folks. But man, like that, there was a lot where that was almost a very hype first half, and it just was not. 11-1.
It was not.
Oof.
It was not. It was not at all. With that in mind, with that behind us, the good news is for XSET, for you all hanging out at home, for us, we do still have one more map to go. This series is going to be decided on Split. You're not going to want to miss it. Stay tuned.
I feel like I need to defend my scene's honor here, because this is just turning into a bit of a dogpile.
Like in groups, always look.
I'm cutting you off here. I'm cutting you off. Cutting you off. He said G2's winning it. He said G2's winning it.
We need to wait till the next EU tournament, which could be in about 10 years now.
Take it with like a grain of salt.
No,
but
that's
that
no
being
fun.
said,
Take it super literally.
Spike defused.